Welcome back to another episode of The Root of All Success. I'm your host, the Real Jason Duncan. And I've got with me today Jack Clark sitting on the couch across from me. We're lucky to be here today at Smokers Abbey in Gallatin, Tennessee. If you are a cigar smoker and you like that type of thing, although we're not smoking today because Jack's not much of a cigar smoker, but that's okay. But we're hanging out today here at Smokers Abbey here in Gallatin. And if you are in the Nashville area, want to check out a cool place, thanks to Josh Stump and his staff for letting us be in here, and I'm really excited. Jack Clark flew all the way from Helena, Montana, flew through Salt Lake City, got here yesterday. We had a nice dinner last night. Well, I ate. You'd already eaten before we got together, but we ate together, had a couple drinks and talked. Jack, welcome to Nashville, man.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. So.
You've been to Nashville a few times.
Yep, Groundwater Show was here a couple years back, so we came down with the whole crew and did the Nashville thing.
All right. Everybody's got to do it once.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And it seems like a lot of people do it all the time.
Yep.
I grew up here, and we don't go to Nashville much. Certainly don't do the downtown Broadway stuff. That's what everybody does. Mm-hmm. But we just don't get down there. But it's nice to be close, because if we want to go do something, go to a show, go see music.
Yeah.
There's nothing like Music City, man.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's exciting.
But you live in a beautiful part of the world.
I do. Yeah. I mean, it's easy to get people to sign up to come to Montana in the summer. This time of year is a little different.
So you are a seventh generation Montanan, right?
Yep.
So your family's been there a long time.
Really long time.
You got a history there. Tell us a little bit about
that.
history.
So I mean, my I don't know what it'd be, great something was the Cattle Queen of Montana, Elizabeth Collins, and so I mean, she came to that area where I grew up, 1890, and so she was, the first woman to ever put cattle on a train and ship them to Chicago. I mean, rode the wagon train from New Mexico all the way to Montana and did that for a long time. Really interesting. Yeah. Really, really powerful woman. I mean, and she was a nurse, and so she was kind of the doctor of the area. And yeah, I mean, really, really deep roots there in Montana. And
so Montana, I've been to Montana once on a trip. We talked about this last night. I took an RV trip across country back in 2015, almost 10 years ago. It's hard to believe it's been that long, but stayed in Billings, Montana at the very first ever KOA. So KOA is a big Campgrounds of America. We got to stay at the very first one right there on the Yellowstone River, and it's just a big, they call it big sky country for a reason.
Oh yeah.
The skies are so much bigger out there.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah.
And you just don't, you've been there your whole life.
Oh yeah.
So you take it for granted, I'm sure, but
oh yeah, you have to
so
a little
beautiful.
bit. Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, you can be in the mountains or on the lake within 5-10 minutes of the house. I mean, it's just incredible.
So we're here today to talk about success, but we want to talk about your story because, I don't remember how we were introduced and how we got together, but you're building a company called 180 Water, and it's 180waterfranchise.com, and you're helping people open franchises to do water well pump maintenance and service, right?
Yep.
I get that
yep,
right?
That's 100% right.
And but you have been what you were telling me is that well water pumps, although not necessarily a sexy industry, but most of the people that are in that industry are mom and pops. It's a $15 billion industry across the United States.
Yep.
But most people are mom and pops that are doing it. But you are first generation doing it, right?
Yeah, so it's kind of a different mindset in terms of that. Like, everybody's very generational. So this is the way my granddad did it. This is the way we're going to do it. And so we're kind of updating the industry a lot too, and just kind of making it more what people expect out of a service industry now. I mean, in terms of the technology and the service and the quality and all of those things that are kind of built into it that is just missing out of the water well industry. And so it's been kind of nice to just, kind of think about it in the broad scheme of things in terms of being able to open locations and those little differences that you can make broadcast across all our locations make a big impact. And so it's been a good round of being able to do that, because it makes you, when it's just your little business, you got 15 employees or whatever, those small things that you change don't make that big a difference, but you start to put it at scale in terms of all your franchisees, and it gets exciting again. It's so much fun to go and solve those little tiny problems to make things just run a little bit better when there's 100 franchisees that'll make a difference. So
have you always been an entrepreneur, business guy, like from a kid, or is this something that relatively new to you, or what?
No, I mean, I was always an entrepreneur. My dad was always in different businesses. I grew up on a cattle ranch. The ranch sold when I was probably 14, 15. And then from there, I mean, it took a while to for my family to kind of get back on track. I mean, that was like kind of our whole future. And my grandfather sold the ranch, and so it was a big shift in my life at that point. And then, my dad just started into the business side of things in terms of that, of, different companies and different avenues. And when you start out like that, when your life changes so quickly, you don't really know what you want to do. You know what I mean? What we were doing is what we wanted to do. And so it was a shift. And so there was a lot of different businesses and a lot of different opportunities and stuff of trying to find the path that he wanted to be on. And so that was a really good experience for me. I mean, I've done everything from cut concrete to run excavator to sell meat in downtown Bozeman. I mean, I had a kind of a wide variety of different things. And he was always interested in the water well industry, and our neighbor growing up was a water well industry. And it's funny, my dad almost bought the same rig I did, probably 15 years before I did. And so that's kind of how I got started into it, is I knew I'm a dyslexic guy, so college wasn't really for me. And my parents made me go to school. I think it's just because I didn't like my girlfriend, but But so I ended up in college, and it just wasn't the right fit for me. You know what I mean? It was 3 hours of work a day, and I was used to working 12 hours a day, and so I mean, it just kind of drove me nuts. I wasn't real happy in terms of that, and so I fished and hunted a lot, and that was good. But college just really never jived, and
Yeah.
so I knew that they would let me, end my college career if I started a water well company, and so that's what I did.
All right, so you college was not for you.
Mm-hmm.
You said, if I do something different, I'm going to start a company. Water well, you'd been introduced to it, had an understanding of it, but really,
Yeah.
nobody had done it.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you. Let me go back before we get into that. I think something you said is pretty interesting. Your grandpa sold the ranch. How big of a ranch?
20,000 acres.
Golly, 20,000 acres.
Yeah. Beautiful end
How
of the
many
road
miles
place.
square is that? That's
Well, a section's 640 is a mile by a mile. So
that's crazy.
yeah,
So,
it was.
So it's huge. 20,000 acre ranch that had been in the family for generations.
Yep.
And how long ago? So you were 14 or 15 when it sold. So it had been in the family for how many generations up to that point?
I would have been the sixth
Okay.
or seventh, right in there. So 1890 is when it was founded.
And that's your grandmother.
Yep.
Your
Elizabeth
great-
Collidas.
your-
Yeah.
your
However many.
Great.
Yeah. Yep.
So she founded this ranch, first white woman to settle in that county.
Yep. First one to ever be born in Teton County. First white woman ever born in Teton County.
So it was all natives, Native
Yep.
Americans.
Yep. All Native Americans. And so she was the nurse, and so she helped a lot of the natives. She was kind of the doctor of the area, and yeah.
So what happened? How did the ranch get sold? What happened?
I honestly think, in terms of business, I think it was too much equity, too young kind of deal. I think my grandfather was, not equipped to operate the ranch in the way that he was supposed to. I mean, when you build it, you understand that what it takes to do that, and when it's, when you inherit it, it's different. And so then, you have this huge ranch that's worth X amount of dollars. If you want to go on a safari in Africa, you can call your banker and say, hey, give me $100,000 against the ranch, and away you go. You know what I mean? And so I think it was just that, and then it just kind of built up, and never really became a good operator.
Oh, wow.
So,
Well, they say that your shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. The first generation earns the money, the second generation spends the money, and the third generation loses the money, and the fourth generation is the one that builds it back. And I get that, that doesn't always happen as easy as that, but that's typically the cycle. And it seems to me like that's the cycle that you're back to the first generation of rebuilding the wealth.
yeah, and that's kind of my goal, my grandpa wasn't necessarily the greatest guy, you know what I mean? And to kind of watch that whole deal kind of fall apart, and family split up, and everybody be mad and angry about the way that it went, I kind of want to go back and do it again and get to that point where I could buy that ranch if I wanted to. Maybe I will. Maybe that's the end of my journey here, is to buy that place back and prove to people that you can do it with integrity and honor and being the person you want to be. You know, and I'm just kind of that leadership in that, I think, is super important. You know, I think that that's going to be a good thing for my family and a good thing for myself to get to that point, that prove to ourselves that we could do it with, you know, being a good person and the person we want to be.
So let me ask you, is when they sold the ranch, 20,000 acres, and so you're in your 30s?
Yep.
So about 15 years
15
ago.
years ago, yep.
So 15 years ago, so we're talking 2010-ish.
Yep.
So how much does it sell for then? And what would it cost to buy it back today?
Oh, it sold for $24 million, you know, and my grandpa had ran a pretty good tab at that point. So, I mean, it's not like my family got anything. It's not like I got anything,
Right.
You know, but I think he made some money on it and was able to retire and do his thing. But, and now, I mean, it's probably, I mean, I think if I go down that road, I probably have $100 million budgeted for it if I ever get to that point. You know, I think that'd be the heck of an end of a life story for me.
Yeah.
Is to buy that place back.
The quadrupled in value in 10, 15 years.
Yeah, I think it probably has. I mean, at least doubled, you know.
For sure.
Yeah.
Are there ranches still for sale that big in that part of the country?
Yeah, there is. I mean, there's quite a few ranches in that $50 to $100 million mark.
Wow.
But I mean, cattle can't pay for that, you know.
Yeah, how do you make money off that?
Really, honestly, in terms of like those big, expensive ranches like that, is tax write-offs. Is really what they are. I mean, you can get a Schedule F, which is your farm credit, and you know, pretty much deduct anything you can possibly think of.
Yeah, so as a business owner,
Yeah.
you earn, let's say you earn $1 million a year in your business, you got a lot of self-employment taxes, things you got to pay on that, so you could go buy a big ranch, and the depreciation, the farm credits on that offset what you would have had to pay in income tax.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
What are your personal thoughts about real estate taxes? Because I can't imagine how big real estate taxes are. I would assume, although I don't know, that the fact of the matter is you have to sell the ranch because the real estate taxes is killing you.
oh yeah.
Like, what's your personal belief about real estate taxes? Do you like
It's
them,
tough,
hate them?
you know. I mean, so I'm a young guy, and I started building shops. Like, I just built what I needed, right? So my wife was in vet school, I was home, and so I was paying rent on a house in town, and I was like, well, this is dumb. So I built a shop, put an apartment in it, and I sold that. And then I built another shop. Now I'm on my third shop, and now I have an acquisition that I'm trying to make happen right now. You know, and I've just 1031, and so I've avoided the taxes. And now my basis in it is so low that I have enough cash, if I sold it without the taxes, to be able to make that acquisition. And literally what is holding me back is the taxes. I can't afford to sell the real estate and pay the tax. And so so I think that I understand the point of taxes, but I think when it starts to inhibit your business growth, it's gone too far, you know?
Yeah, I think that the reason I ask about that is that personally, I think that the real estate taxes are one of the worst taxes that we as Americans ever allowed to happen to us. Because you think about a 20,000 acre ranch or a 1 acre plot of land in a neighborhood somewhere.
Yep.
You pay that off and you don't owe the bank anything.
Yep.
But if you don't pay the taxes, who gets it? The county, the state, the city,
Yeah.
whoever. They get to come in and take it. Why? Well, because it's a real estate tax that you owe. So we allowed the government to own our property in perpetuity.
Yep.
I mean, that sucks. Think about that. How did we let that happen? Now, I know, when we're recording this in December of 2024, Trump's been elected. He's going to be the next president, and he's talked a lot about taxes, but I haven't heard him say anything about real estate taxes. But I'll tell you what, if I ever had the inclination to get involved in politics, locally or otherwise, I got to go after real estate taxes. Because think about how many people lose ranches just because they're paid for, they don't have enough cash to pay the taxes, and they lose the ranch because of taxes.
And then the inheritance tax, too.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
I
death
mean, when they
tax.
inherit that asset, I mean, realistically, I mean, it might be a $30 million ranch, but really, it's doing a $300,000 net a year. And so they have to pay taxes like it's a $30 million inheritance, and they're making $300,000 a year.
And they lose it because of that.
Yep.
Yeah, there's got to be reform, and I know that entrepreneurs who listen to this show and people that sit across from me on this couch, we've got to do something about this tax thing. I'm so sick of people saying, well, the rich have to pay their fair share. Listen, the rich are paying more than everybody else as it is.
Absolutely.
And I understand that it might look like they're not, but they are. Like
Right.
here in the state of Tennessee, we don't have a state income tax. Does Montana have state income tax?
Yes,
Okay.
it does.
So we don't have a state income tax here, but man, let me tell you, for business owners, we get nickeled and dimed by the state every turn. I get a piece of paper every week from the state asking for more money, another fee on this, another tax on that. Yeah, the average person who's an employee doesn't understand that.
No.
But the business owners are getting killed.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, and all they see is us avoid the taxes. They don't understand when you're looking at paying $1 million in taxes, yeah, of course you're going to try to use every loophole you can to try to avoid that.
Yeah.
If it was 20 grand or something like that, we wouldn't worry about it. But when it's, $1 million or $2 that you're trying to make the deal, that is what's going to make the deal go around. You have to do your loopholes. You got to try to work it, And so, like, where I'm at on the acquisition side of things, like, the debt isn't taxed. So literally, I'm going to have to just build, a real estate portfolio that has enough equity to be able to take on debt to be able to do my acquisition,
Yep.
So
A lot of super wealthy people, the way they make their money is through debt, leveraging debt, because they understand that's the way to avoid taxes legally. And I know you said loophole, and I know what you mean, and I think everybody listening knows what you mean, but the reality is it's not a loophole. That's the way the code is written.
Yep. It's the way the rules are written.
If you do this, you don't have to pay this.
Yep.
Okay, that's not a loophole. That is the law.
Yep.
And the people that are mad about that are just people that are jealous and don't understand, well, look, I went out and took the risk. I built a business. I put it all on the line. I took out all this debt to do this thing.
Yep.
Now, if I make $1 million a year and I pay less taxes than a teacher making 50 grand a year,
Right.
well, there's a reason the code was written that way. They want you to be the employee,
Right.
and they're going to reward us for being entrepreneurs who make more employees because they get more taxes for the employees than they do the owner.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it is.
It's an upside down world, but this is the world we live in, and people like you and me are just taking proper advantage of the laws as they're written.
Right.
We're not trying to screw anybody or get away with anything. It's
Right.
the way it's written.
And then we're creating opportunities for other people.
Yeah.
With, those savings and other things that, I employ, 15 people now, and I hope to employ probably close to 50 to 100 people. And that's a lot of risk and reward for everybody, and we're going to make successful businesses out of this franchise opportunities that we have going on. And so the impact that we have by taking advantage of those savings, it's not like it's accredited. You know what I mean? It's not like, hey, you created some jobs, here's a kickback or anything like that. It's just, or tax savings even. It's not it's a different kind of game, you know what I mean? They seem like the bigger you get, the bigger the target gets on you.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to watch that kind of play out.
When was, do you remember in your entrepreneurial journey when you kind of became aware of this whole tax and money game? You're like, wait a minute, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Did you have an awareness moment of something?
Yeah, it's as soon as you take your foot off the gas pedal.
Let's take a quick break to thank our amazing sponsors for making this podcast possible.
As an entrepreneur running multiple businesses, effective communication is critical for me. I've tried all kinds of outreach tools over the years, but none have compared to Dubb when it comes to driving real results, and that's DUBB. I was one of Dubb's first users. I think it was like 7 years ago when they first launched, and I've been a loyal customer ever since. Dubb has completely transformed my prospecting, my client communication strategy, and here's why. Dubb makes it simple to record personal video messages and share them across email, SMS, social media, and more. And this brings back the face-to-face connection that's missing from most digital outreach. And what happens is my prospects instantly feel more engaged when they can put my face to my name. I end up building a stronger relationship faster by incorporating these video messaging into my workflow. Dubb also provides tracking and analytics so I can see exactly who engages with my videos and how they respond to them. Their automation and their CRM features help me nurture leads and close more deals. That's what we're trying to do, right, as entrepreneurs. So after using Dubb for years, I absolutely can't recommend them enough. Ruben, those guys over there are phenomenal. I love Darius. They're all great guys. It's become an invaluable tool that I depend upon to run my businesses efficiently. And if you want to boost your outreach and see amazing results like I have, head over to therealjasonduncan.com/dub. That's DUBB, and you can try it completely for free. No credit card required. You get the first 50% off your first 2 months, by the way, if you use my link. You need to take your prospecting to the next level with video messaging from Dub. They're my go-to sales communication platform for nearly 7 years and counting. Go to therealjasonduncan.com/dub. Try it for free, no credit card required, and you'll get 50% off your first 2 months as well.
Thanks for listening to our sponsors. Now, back to the show.
And that's when it becomes an issue. I mean, if you just want to grow your whole life and expand your company as fast and as hard as you can, take out debt, expand, keep buying drill rig, keep buying everything, probably never going to pay taxes. Not until you get to the end of your career and shut it down. But the guy that wants to slow down and plane out and say, you know what, I'm good, I got 15 employees, I got a great life, I'm going to settle down, I'm going to take care of my family, that guy's going to get the heck taxed out of him. And that's kind of when I realized it, is when I took my foot off my expansion of my current Western water wells and shifted into 180 is really when I felt that. As I didn't need equipment. My guys, my franchisees are buying equipment, they're expanding. I kind of retracted my company to running a really tight crew and just kind of took a step back and then put franchisees around me that are all doing really well and successful, and kind of took that extra out of it. So I didn't necessarily need, 20 different trucks. I need 10. And then that's really when the taxes kind of kicked in.
Yeah.
So
that's an interesting perspective, Jack. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that, but it's perfectly right, because as long as you're pushing and pushing and pushing, there's ways to avoid appropriately the taxes. It's just when you try to say, okay, now I'm going to enjoy the fruits of my labor, the government walks up and goes, knock, knock, hello, you owe us some money.
And it's one thing to do that, like in the middle of your career, say, hey, I'm going to step back, I'm going to feed my kids. What I don't like is when, that working man worked his whole life and built that company, and then he finally backs off and says, I'm going to slow down, I'm going to retire, I'm going to take a step back, and then he gets nailed. I don't know if I agree with that. So,
well, I don't know what to do about it, man. I just know we got to take advantage of the tax code. The tax code, if you look at it in percentages, 10% of the tax code is defining what income is and how much tax is paid on that income. And the other 90% is written on how to not have income. That's essentially what it is. Like, if you do it like this, there's a way to avoid appropriately. And that's, you look at our school systems. Our school system is designed to create employees. Employees pay the highest taxes.
Yep.
And who pays for the school system? Well, the taxes pay for the school system. So it's a self-feeding system. And I don't believe that it was done, although I could argue it. I don't think that was done intentionally, but it certainly is the way it's turned out.
Yeah.
And like I was telling you a minute ago, those of us as entrepreneurs who rise out of that employee pool and say, you know what, I want to go do something, we get rewarded. Okay, well, we'll give you the opportunity to not pay income tax, but they're still going to get you on everything else.
Yep.
And that's the thing, when we say don't pay taxes, well, we are paying lots of taxes. It's just income tax that we can get away with not having to pay. You have to pay franchise and excise tax here in the state of Tennessee. You got to pay employment payroll taxes.
Yep.
I mean, that's crazy.
It is.
It is. What I don't think employees understand is that your paycheck, sure, we pull some taxes out of your paycheck before we give it to you because the government tells us we have to. But whatever you pulled out, we have to pull out too, and we don't have anywhere to pull it from. Like it's like we just have to. That's an extra check. Every time you add somebody to payroll, that's another tax I got to pay.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. So, and when you're growing, you don't even think about those things.
I know.
When you're expanding and you're hustling, and then you're just rolling, and it is what it is. And then as soon as you back off and start to really, that X amount of dollars that you're paying to that tax, it starts to add up. But when you're just going for it, blowing and going, you don't think about that stuff until you really step back and settle in, and then those taxes all add up.
So let's get back to your story as an entrepreneur. So you decided, I'm leaving college, I don't like this thing, 3 hours of work. I'm ready to work 12 hours a day because you're a cattle rancher. You want to be able to do this. So you decide water wells is the thing you're going to get into.
Yep.
Why? Why water wells?
So my neighbor growing up was a really renowned water well guy. I mean, just had a really nice, clean company and did really well. And then there was another guy in town that didn't do so well. And, he kind of had a reputation of being a little, how do you say that politely, out there. He was a little out there, but the thing about that is everybody knew he made a killing. And so it was very known that, like, wow, if he can make a killing, then this industry must be incredible. And so everybody always talked, like, everybody in the town probably thought about starting a water well company because of this guy. And so I think it was, so between those two, so I kind of got to see the one side of, like, wow, this is the way you do it right. This is a really nice, clean-cut company. And then kind of got to see the opposite side of it, and both very successful guys. And so there was always an interest in the water well industry in our little squirt town because of that, and that kind of divide in it. So, and nobody could ever get a well drilled either. There's people waiting 2 years to get a water well drilled. So
Really?
oh yeah, it's that way all over the country. So
your business, the Western water wells, you're actually drilling wells.
Yep, we drill wells.
But your 180
is all service.
is all service only,
Yeah.
and that's the franchise model you're building, which we'll get to in a minute. But
Yep.
I want to make sure I understand. Western water wells, you started in 2014.
Yep.
And so 10 years ago, and you started drilling wells on private property for people to have
Yep.
water.
Yep. So
And you got to have a lot of equipment to do that.
yeah, you do. I started out with a $50,000 drill rig. I literally came out of college. I was night calving, so I was working nights and then going to my 3 hours of classes. So saved up some money, sold my ranch horse, and put a down payment on a drill rig with the same banker I have today. Just a small town story, And now, I don't know, our rig's, worth 20 times what it was then, and we have a nice new equipment, but we didn't start out that way. That first rig, it would drill like 100 foot a day and was dangerous as heck. And I can't believe we made it through that. It was one of those experiences in your life. You're like, if I would have known half what I do when I started, I would have never done this, but once you get into it, I always say, I'm just too dumb to quit. And I think that's true. I think growing up in this little squirt town in Montana, maybe don't realize all the challenges in front of you, and you just have to be okay with that, and so I definitely think it was a too dumb to quit kind of decision. And then I ended up with a great mentor that, really took me from drilling 100 foot a day to 300 feet a day, and those mentorships, and then I created a driller, and Morgan took over and started doing the own drilling thing, and we really kind of dove deep into the pump side of things, and then, the pump stuff is very detail oriented, very step by step, much more structured than the drilling side. So we got into that, and then Jeff came along. He's one of our instructors now, and he really took us from doing, for lack of a better word, missing all the small details to, like, really taking it top shelf pump work. We're getting really good life out of our pumps and just really happy clients. And he was a great mentor in terms of making Western, pump side really take off. And so that mentorship is really kind of what we're trying to build into this deal. Obviously we're the upfront mentors, but then the next layer of that onion is to have regional guys and those guys that can help these young guys really get started.
Yeah. So how much business are you doing now with Western Water Wells? Now that you've started 180 Water, is it 50-50? You're spending 50% of your time on 180 and 50% on Western, or what? How much time?
Yeah, so Western's 100% employee ran right now, and so I'm 100% on 180 Water. So
okay,
yeah.
So it took you 10 years to get to a place where you could step away from the daily operations of Western, so
Yeah.
that you could go focus on bigger ventures or different ventures, right?
Yeah, and I think for me, that's what I'm always. I don't like the day-to-day operation side of things. As soon as it planes out, it loses my total interest. I like the growth side of things. I like to expand things and keep pushing. And so that's kind of why I stepped back from Western, is that it was just running smoothly, and so we put management teams in place, and away it goes. And then we stepped into 180. We're a place where we can kind of push a little farther, you know?
So what'd you do? Walk me through how you were able to build Western to a place where you could step away and it continues to run without you.
Yeah. You know, I think it comes back to just knowing who you are and keeping your integrity. You know, I mean, you're a good person, good people find you. I think good people attract each other, and
Yeah.
I think bad people attract each other. And I think it's all, you know, who you are as a person is who you get to work with. And so I'm very fortunate to work with wonderful people, you know, and I hope that that's a good reflection of myself. You know, I'm not going to say that. That's not my place to give myself that much credit. But really, I think just being a good human and caring about your people has really kind of allowed us to expand to the point where we have people that we can count on and trust and represent me well too. You know, I mean, I'm proud to have each one of those guys out there in the field with, you know, our company name, but really my name on them. You know, I mean, they're doing good work. They're showing up on time. They're making their T-ball games. They're, you know, I mean, they're active members of the community too. I mean, there's so many times that I walk into the office and, you know, they're doing something amazing with 4-H or all those community events. I mean, they're in parades. They're helping build the new rodeo grounds. They're just very involved guys. And I'm really happy that we were able to instill that into our employees.
Well, I like the fact that you start off the answer to that question by saying you got to be a good guy. You got to be somebody worth working for. But it's more than that. You have to do more than just be a decent dude. You can't just be a really good guy. I know lots of really good guys. Their companies would crumble if they didn't show up tomorrow. So, but what else did you do? What do you think is going to be the key to you being able to step away without it crumbling?
I'm an open book, and I think that was an important part to making that transition. Is they understood the business, they understood the numbers. There was no secrets in our company. I mean, they knew what we made every day. They knew what we netted every week. We do P&Ls every week. I mean, everybody knows what we do there. And I think that really kind of allows us to align and work together as a team when there's no secrets, you know?
So when you say no secrets, they knew how much you took home
Yep.
personally.
Yep.
And nobody ever kind of gave you the side eye only.
I don't make the most money there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No, I have employees who get paid more than I do. So,
surely out of distributions you're making more money.
yeah, I don't usually take distributions. I usually leave them in the company.
Okay.
You know, I'm a big money's energy, and it's nice to just leave the energy in the company. You know, I don't have any. I like the growth side of things, and I like to be able to just leave the money in there, and I'm always on to the next idea. So, ideas cost money, so it's always been left in there.
So is it an LLC?
Yeah.
And your tax as an S corp.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're just taking a W-2
Yep.
salary through the S corp.
Yep.
And then you don't take any distributions on the back
Nope.
end. But as an LLC, you have to pay taxes on that.
Yep.
So you're having your bookkeeper or whoever is making sure that
Oh, yeah.
you take enough to make sure the taxes are
Yep.
covered.
No.
Going back to our tax conversation, they're going to get you, man. They're
Oh,
going to
yeah.
get you
Yep.
one way or the other. They're going to get you, and there's ways to operate it. So you've got S corp tax status on an LLC. You've got employees who have higher salaries than you.
Yep.
Well, that's true. I mean, I take a W-2 for my company,
Yep.
but I don't take the highest W-2.
Yeah.
But I do take distributions. Okay, so you're open book, you're a good guy, but what about delegation and systemization, automation? Tell me about how you were able to work
Yeah, I
those
mean, a
out.
lot of what I did came from Good to Great. It was an excellent book for me.
Yep.
That's where our bonus system came from, our side-to-side accountability. So what we do is we run a 2% bonus on gross sales for each one of our guys. And so what that kind of allowed us to do is, one, they make sure that they build everything. They sit down at the end of the week and go, hey, I did this job, this job, this job, and I built X. And they're double-checking that. So you're not missing an invoice. Or you're not getting callbacks. You know what I mean? They'll take that extra 5 minutes, make sure everything's clean, make sure nothing's leaking, make sure that the pump's operating correctly. Because if they get called back, they don't get their commission. And so it creates that side-to-side accountability that really just allows them to do top-notch work and really act as a business owner. And so I think a lot of what we did for that first 10 years was pretty much made these guys think like a business owner and really be a part of owning the business. And I think that was kind of the key to our success in terms of being able for me to step back is I created 15 mini business owners that are involved in the day-to-day decision making of my business. And so when I stepped back, there was just one less guy at the table. They're still making the decisions the same way amongst each other. And so I think that like that's kind of where that owner-operator model came from, is that that's the way we ran our business forever. So
Yeah, you got your employees are bought in. They have ownership, maybe not technically, but they have mental ownership of the business, and they own the process.
Yep.
And you believe that's been helpful.
Oh, absolutely.
How has the business? I know you started 180 Water. You started your franchising 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So 2024 was when you stepped away.
Yep.
So when you stepped away from Western, has there been growth, or is it steady, like it used to be? What's happening financially to the business now that you're not?
They're growing. You know, I mean, they really are. I mean, they're stepping up. I mean, their sales are good. Their relationships are good with our clients. You know, is really what we found. I mean, you can see it in our reviews. It went from, man, Jack and his crew are awesome, to Western Water Wells is great. 180 Water is great. Man, he answered the phone at 7 o'clock, and they were out here the next morning doing a great job. Like, you can just see that shift in your reviews even, and the way that your company is operating, that they've really kind of just stepped up and taken that.
That's
Taking
gotta
it by
feel
the.
good.
It is. You know, it's really cool because I think another part to like building a successful company is always making sure those guys are moving forward. You know, and I mean, I'll hire a guy to sweep the floor of the shop and tell him like, hey, you do a good job here, you're going to be on a pump truck in 6 months. And if you do a good job there, you're going to be running a pump truck in 6 months. And then you're going to be getting paid commission, and then your whole life can change. You know, I mean, we'll take you to the next level. We're not going to, we don't expect you, and we don't want you to be a shop sweeper. You know? And so I think like just always giving them an avenue to continue to improve is huge.
Yeah. Now 180. When did you start 180? I know you started franchising 6 months ago, but
Yeah.
you had to start it before then.
About 3 years it took me to really get it off the ground in terms of like the legal documents, the FDDs, the lawyers. I mean, we are a legitimate franchise. We did everything perfect. We did everything right. I mean, there's no gray areas. There's no nothing. I mean, everything is completely done properly, and that takes a long time. You know, and a lot of your
And a lot of
profit,
money.
yeah, and a lot of your profit distributions go into that. You know,
Yeah.
so.
Well, that's money you didn't have to pay income taxes on, but you had to
Yep.
give it to the lawyers.
Yep. Lawyers,
Because
accountants.
the federal government is in charge of the franchise laws, right?
Yeah. You know, I think the franchise definitely got some black eyes. You know, it sounds like it kind of started out like the wild, wild west, and so there's a lot of regulation on franchises now. And I think a lot of it's good. You know, I mean, I would hate to have. I mean, you just think about that, right? Like a high-pressure sales deal where you're selling somebody a franchise and they're paying a franchise fee and then they never get off the ground. Like, that's terrible. And so, I mean, obviously that's not the way we're going to do business, but it's kind of nice that there's a lot of things in there to protect people that are looking to start a business, because there's a lot to know, and it's a scary and it's a big venture. And so I'm glad that there is some regulation on it. You know, it's easy to follow. It's very well laid out. So.
But it's 3 years and a lot of money.
Oh yeah, to get off the ground for sure, you know. And then there's a lot of registration states and filing states, and so it's a different world, you know. And I think the biggest difference was going from like, you know, a water well industry that is, there's no data on the water well industry really. I mean, there's some great surveys and some other things that we use to kind of help us, you know, scale our franchise side of things. But in terms of a day-to-day basis, it's not like, hey, you're going to get 10 phone calls and sell a 200-foot well. In the franchise world, there is.
Let's take a quick break to thank our amazing sponsors for making this podcast possible.
I finally got it. It's the brand new Relay credit card. So check it out. I'm going to do a little unboxing for you so you can check this out. So here we go. Nice little case, kind of like the American Express. You know, they're not playing. They're doing it right. Oh, look at this. There's a quote right inside. It says, "Success is having to worry about every damn thing in the world except money." Johnny Cash. That's pretty good. I've not heard that one. Oh, this is nice. A little thing on the back, up to 1.5% cash back, no annual fees or interest, 30-day billing cycle. And There it is. It's the Relay credit card. It's a Visa. So I'm not going to show you my number, but there it is. Look at that. Boom. Go to therealjasonduncan.com/relay.
Thanks for listening to our sponsors. Now, back to the show.
And so it's really kind of fun. I'm a math guy, so it's kind of fun to be able to have like, hey, I got to make 100 phone calls to sell 3 franchises, and I have to have X amount of leads to be able to do that. So we opened 6 franchises so far. So we're open about 1 a month right now, and in that 1 a month, we have about 100 people that apply. So we're super picky about who we take on. I mean, this is a wonderful opportunity, but it needs to be a good opportunity for everybody, and make sure that they're the right fit. Because I think what takes the fun out of the franchise world is if you get the wrong person on the bus. Somebody that just isn't happy, that isn't what they thought it was. And so we're really cautious of that because we want this to be fun. It needs to be fun.
Yeah.
So
you have, so I don't know how much you could talk about it publicly because I don't know what the franchise laws are, but there's a fee to get involved in the franchise if you want to open up in a certain territory. And then there is an ongoing, I don't know what that would be, for royalty. Is it a royalty? Is that what they call it?
Yep, it's a royalty.
Royalty that's paid back to 180 Water
Yep.
to make sure that the franchise stays in compliance with the way that you're doing things. And then there's a contract, I guess a contractual time period that they have to agree to stay there. And then there's non-competes, I'm assuming, on the back end. Is all that right?
All built into it, yep. So it's a 10-year contract. It's a $45,000 franchise fee is what we're operating right now. And then a 6% royalty, And so we have a lot of stuff up front. I mean, just starting out. So like that $45,000, I mean, we're basically reinvesting that into each franchise location. And then, we try to size our locations to kind of operate 3 trucks. 2 to 3 trucks is kind of what we're shooting for. I mean, we don't ever want to kind of limit somebody's opportunity, And so we would rather have bigger locations that are more successful than really, stack people in here and be tight and really focus on trying to make that $45,000. We're not greedy guys. We're not trying to get rich off this deal. We're just trying to make a steady deal. And so we have a lot of value built on that front end to really make sure. And then there's a lot of things that we're doing to make that long term, right? Because if you don't renew in 10 years, well, then I don't have anything. I got to start this whole process over. And so we're trying to add a lot of long-term value to it now, and we're moving towards service contracts and 10-year warranties and a lot of things that are going to really make that reoccurring revenue for these guys, And then there's only about 3 suppliers in the water well industry, and so we have negotiated all their prices across the country already. And so basically we have it to the point now where, they should be saving 16% from if they started out on their own to if they join us. And so that's going to completely cover all of their royalties.
For sure. Yeah. Now, where are the 6 that you've sold that are active right now? Where are they located?
Montana and North Dakota. Yeah.
Montana and North Dakota. But you can do this in all 50 states?
Yeah, we tried to keep our first ones really close. Like, I just figured we would miss something. And I figured it wouldn't be anything big, but I figured it'd be something small, right? Like those little details that you overlook by doing it every day. And so we really try to keep them close. And I had a way more anticipated for this deal than I thought. Like I had 1 full-time employee dedicated to go into each location for 2 weeks as soon as they opened. Like I figured that we were going to be boots on the ground with these guys. And we opened 6 locations this year, and I think our first training was 3 locations, and that was in July. And I bet you we didn't answer 10 phone calls, and they just started rolling. So our training process is like way, 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 way more successful than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And we built a flow chart that diagnoses pumps. So like you can show up to a job, and if you follow this step by step by step by step flow chart, it'll diagnose your water well system. And so now we're linking that all into videos. And so you can tap each one of those flow charts, and it'll pop up with a video of Jeff that tells you how to diagnose that step and what to see, and really just kind of apply that hands-on into our technology.
So out of the money that you spent in percentage,
Yep.
So out of the money you spent to get the franchise launched, a lot of that was the lawyers, a lot of that's the fees that you had to pay. But how much did you spend to prepare the systems and the video training and the flow chart? at a percentage of
Yeah.
what you spent, how much of the money you spent was on that stuff?
Oh man. Well, it's tough because a lot of that's payroll. You know what I mean? You're paying guys
And
that
they're already on payroll.
Yeah.
So it's like a sunk cost already there.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so what you ended up doing is raising the overhead of your current company to float this. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
they were employees of my current company. They were working on my franchise stuff. So it's hard to say. But I mean, I have probably 3 guys on it for over a year now.
Wow.
So
Now, you were talking about the fact that nobody in the well water industry owns more than 5% of a $15 billion industry.
yep.
Because it's mostly mom and pops that
All
run
mom and
these.
pops,
Yeah,
yep.
Because you would be considered mom and pop.
Yep.
Like it's you and your wife, and that's it. Right? She's not involved though, right? She's
She's a veterinarian, so
she's
no.
got her own.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
got her own thing she's doing. But with your idea of the franchise, what's your goal here? You want a franchise in every state? You want 20 franchises in every state? What do you want?
I want a whole network that's going to work together closely, you know, and we're accomplishing that right now. Like our franchise guys that are close to each other, they might bounce, they'll all bounce east, you know what I mean? Like, the one Billings guy will run to Sydney, and then the Bozeman guy will run to Billings, and then we'll run to Bozeman. And so it's really nice to kind of watch these guys support that, and to really kind of have those guys that they can rely on. And I think that that's the key to this, is to have that network of guys that, hey, man, I'm going to go on vacation next week. Would you mind taking my phone calls, make sure my clients are taken care of? Yeah, absolutely. You know, and really kind of build that basis for them to be able to relax. Because, man, when you're building a company, you're never going to be at dinner with your wife for 10 years. You know, your phone's going to be ringing. You're going to have to step out and answer it. I still step out and answer mine every day. And so I think to kind of give them that structure of having guys that they can rely on close enough to them to work together is really important.
Yeah, I agree. Well, so now let me ask you this question. You've been very successful. You've obviously built something really good with Western, and now 180 Water is off the ground and running. You're really doing really well, because opening one franchise per month over 6 months is unheard of. That's pretty good in franchise
Yep.
world. What do you think is your key to being able to be that successful? What do you think has been unlocked that for you?
I think a lot of it's mentorship and realizing that mentorship, you know, and really surrounding yourself with people that you want to be like. I think it's important, but also just having the right people on the bus, you know, and I mean, you end up with such good guys that you have to be successful for them, you know, and I mean, I'm totally satisfied with where I'm at, but one, we have to take care of our clients. We have too many clients to be able to do that. You know, I don't want to be that water wheel guy that sits around my office and says, hey, you know, you're 50 miles out. We can't service your water well, and you're just going to be without water until, you know, if we feel like it, maybe next week we can get there. I don't want to be that guy, you know, and so it's kind of a jumbled up mess of all of that stuff compounding to like, we got more work to do, and we can't back off this gas pedal in terms of making sure that these people are taken care of too. I mean, it's our responsibility to make sure that people have access to clean water.
Yeah. My neighbor at our cabin in Sevierville, we live, we're at the top of the mountain, and there's only 5 houses in this community. And he's the only person who lives there full time. Everybody else is either vacation homes or rentals. And his water well went out. It's been about a month ago, and he was without water for, I think, 2 weeks. And we talked to him. We were up there a few weeks ago, and we were talking to him about getting it fixed. He said, yeah, we finally got it fixed. Luckily, his son and mom lived down the hill, and he could go down there and get buckets of water and bring them back up to the house and cook and clean and do the things they needed to do to stay in their home. But you don't think of, like, for people that are just on city water and don't understand the necessity and the reliance on a well.
Oh, absolutely.
That's a big deal. But I think I like the heart that you were just demonstrating there, that, hey, we want to take care of people. It's water. We take it for so much for granted in the United States that we have access to water. But like my neighbor, Wayne, when he didn't have water for 2 weeks, it's like living in a third world country.
Oh, yeah,
like
absolutely.
You just don't have access to the one thing that you have to have. You can make without food for a while, but if you don't have water, you're out.
Well, and it gets more, I mean, that time clock gets shorter. I mean, you put 200 head of cattle there, and I mean, he's moving, 35 gallons per day per cow. So, I mean, he's hauling water. And so that access to reliable pumping systems is huge, you know.
Yeah.
We do a lot with solar now. So, I mean, that's been really good. So we do solar water pumps so we can do off-grid stuff pretty much anywhere.
So what would you say is your definition of success? What does Jack Clark think that the word success means?
Yeah, to me, it's happiness. You know, I mean, I think success and happiness are the same thing. You know, I think being happy is more important than being successful. And I find myself being happy whenever I'm moving forward in life. And I think it's the same thing for my employees. You know, everybody's working on leveling up and moving up in the world. And I think as long as you're on that journey, I find myself to be very happy. And so I think that's kind of the key to me, you know?
Yeah. So happiness.
Happiness, yeah.
Now, by that definition, do you consider yourself successful?
Yeah, I'm very happy, yeah. I love what I do every day. I love the guys I work with, you know, and I think that's just such a key factor, you know, and then it plays over into your personal life too. I mean, my kid's excited to see me at the end of the day. My wife's happy. I mean, we're in 3 different states right now, but we'll all be together, and we got a 2-year-old birthday on Sunday that, you know, everybody's asking about and everybody wants to be a part of. And I think that, you know, those key relationships in life are really what helps a person be happy consistently. And then, you know, all working towards a common goal, I think, is kind of the cherry on top.
So I want you to put your advisor and coach hat on for a second. 'Cause
Sure.
I know you're coaching a lot of your franchisees, but for the listener that is an entrepreneur and they're listening to your story and they're admiring what you've built and how successful you've been, what would you say is your best piece of advice for that person?
Find good mentors, build a good team. You know, I think those people that are good mentors want to help you anyways. And I think a lot of that comes down to, you know, especially as a young guy, you can just, the first guy at work, you know, if you're on a job site and you're the first one there and the last one to leave, I mean, you're going to find a mentor that way, and just really walking through the world being a good human. Those guys find you, they seek you out, you know. I mean, I have wonderful people that totally have my back, and I've never asked them to have my back because they know I'm going to do what's right, and I know I'm going to put in the hours, and I'm not going to let them down, you know.
So who's been your greatest mentor?
Ooh, that's a tough one, you know. Golly. Man, I don't know. That's a tough one. I haven't been asked that before. I think it'd be a discredit to name one.
Well, give me a few. Let's call them out. Who are these people that you look to and say, you know what, these people really helped me out?
Yeah, shoot. Man, there's a lot of them. I mean, that's the trouble. I mean, I built a house 2 years ago, and now one of my best mentors and best friends is my neighbor. Like,
yeah,
it's just the kind of guy that you are, you know. I mean, he catches you out there fencing on Sunday, and he's right there helping you, you know. I think it's those guys that show up on your worst day and totally have your back, and you never ask them to show up, you know. And I hope I'm that for a lot of people, you know. And I think the franchise allows me to do that, you know. I mean, there's bad days in business that you feel like the whole world's falling apart, and you really need somebody. And I've had a lot of guys that have been that for me, you know.
Yeah. Well, I would agree with you, man. I think mentorship is a underutilized superpower that people need to look into. You can fly when you get a mentor.
Oh yeah.
You can do some amazing
things. And we're finding really good mentors in 180. Like, I kind of thought that we'd be kind of blackballed a little bit in the water well industry in terms of, like, I mean, we're not corporate, we're independently owned and operated, but we're still kind of a larger side of the company. And so I kind of thought that we'd be kind of shunned a little bit. But, man, we've had great people reach out that really just want to pass along the knowledge that they've learned in the industry for 30 years and have never had an avenue to be able to do that. And so, man, those guys are just flowing through our door, and we're giving them an avenue to mentor and work with people in their own areas. And so I think that's going to be really good for us.
Well, Jack, I want to say a big thanks for you coming all the way to Nashville, flying in for the show. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah.
Congratulations on your success. You've done
Thank you.
really well, and I'm excited to see where 180 Water goes, because building that franchise model out, if you've built it this fast, this short period of time, I can only imagine how big this thing could get for you. And so
Yeah.
Congratulations on what you've built.
Thank
man.
you. Thank you for having me. And yeah, hopefully we can just do it responsibly and make sure that it is as successful as we hope it to be. So.
All right, so people can get in touch with you on Instagram at 180water, and that's 180_water, and use the 180_water
Yep.
on Instagram. Also, you can look them up on Facebook, and if you're interested in the water franchise, it's 180waterfranchise.com. Anything else you want to leave with the guests or the people that are listening today?
Turning around the water well industry. That's where 180 came from. So.
All right, I love it. Well, Jack, thanks again, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, there you have it, another successful entrepreneur about his journey to success. And what's interesting is that when I interview people like Jack in an industry that is not, there's no way to even classify that as sexy. There's lots of sexy industries. Digging wells for water is not a sexy industry, but look at what he's been able to accomplish. And the fact that he started this on the backside of saying, well, I don't want to go to college. I'm going to go start a business. And I think this water well thing will work. And then I think what's interesting about that story too is that his main business, Western Water Wells, he started 10 years ago actually digging wells, and then had this idea to do a franchise, but not in digging wells, in servicing just the pumps, because that is obviously once the well's dug, the pump is something you need. If you've never had a well, you don't know how important that pump is. I've got a place in Sevierville that's got a pump, and I've also got I had a place in Gallatin here that had a well pump, and it's very, very important that that thing works and is serviced all the time. What is it that you're missing in your life as an entrepreneur? Where could you be making a slight pivot one way or the other that could open up a whole nother opportunity? I want you to send me an email. You're going to email me jd@therealjasonduncan.com and let me know what you're trying to do in the entrepreneurial world. And there's a guy, our voiceover guy here at the end, is going to give you some information about how you can go to the next step and get in touch with me. So make sure you listen to him. Tune in again next time when I talk with yet another very successful entrepreneur about his or her journey to success. And until then, as always, I am the real Jason Duncan, and Jesus is King.
Attention business owners. Attention business owners. Feeling burnout from running your business? Uncertain if you're nearing burnout? Take our free 10-question business burnout test at businessburnouttest.com to discover where you stand. With just 10 quick questions, you'll learn how to immediately begin making changes to regain freedom and success. Cut your daily operations time in half. Improve your quality of life and prepare your business for your future exit without losing revenue or profit. Visit businessburnouttest.com now and take the test. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Follow Jason on social media at The Real Jason Duncan. See you again next time here on The Root of All Success.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.